Hi, you guys. This is Misty with the Oracle Evolution. Welcome back to the Tarot Deep Dive series, where we're jumping straight into it with episode 1, The Fool. Now, if you haven't already, I highly recommend you checking out the introductory episode. This episode breaks down exactly what you'll be learning in this series and the best way to navigate each video. And trust me, it is well worth the watch because what you're about to experience is packed with real life insight, layers of application, and guidance you won't find in a surface level tarot course. So today we're starting at the beginning of the journey, at the beginning of the tarot journey, but not in the way that most people teach it. Because the Fool is not just about new beginnings. It is about spiritual patterns that keep repeating. It is about karmic choices that echo across lifetimes and hidden warnings you may be ignoring. It is about power plays that don't look like power at first, blind spots you never realized were there, and life lessons that keep circling back until you finally stop and pay attention. You're going to see how the Fool shows up in every single area of life, from your relationships and finances to your spiritual awakening, mental health, business patterns, and even in criminal or legal situations. The Fool is there, and today we're going to decode every single layer of it. So grab your journal, your favorite tarot deck, and a highlighter, because this is not lightweight tarot talk. We're going to go deep, and by the end of the episode, you'll never look at that Fool card the same way again. So let's begin by exploring what the Fool means when it shows up in the context of everyday life. Okay, now when you pull this card upright, it is often signaling a fresh start. You're entering something new. Maybe you're making a major decision or walking into uncharted territory with hope, with excitement, or pure curiosity. In its healthiest expression, the Fool represents your willingness to explore without needing all of those answers. It's the card of personal freedom, bold curiosity, and the kind of brave innocence that moves even when the map hasn't quite been drawn yet. But here's where people tend to misunderstand this card. The Fool isn't always light and airy. Sometimes it shows up when you're moving way too fast, when you're walking blindly and ignoring obvious signs, when you're stepping off of a cliff emotionally, spiritually, or financially, and you don't even know it yet. It's that false confidence that convinces you everything is fine, even when you haven't actually paused to ask if you're truly prepared. Reversed, the Fool can be a hard truth. It might mean that you're hesitating, holding back, second guessing yourself, or letting fear stop your next step. But it could also mean you've already taken a foolish leap without planning, without awareness, and now the consequences are slowing you down. Reversed, this card often speaks to misalignment. Whether you're playing it too safe or being way too reckless, the energy says that something inside of you is off, and it's time to get honest as to why. Now, let's bring the Fool energy into your relationships. If you're single and you pull the Fool upright, it's that spark of something new, right? Maybe you're just beginning to date again or meeting someone who feels exciting and different. There's this sense of lightheartedness, flirtation, adventure, like you're finally open to something fresh. But here's the twist. That same card can be a soft warning because sometimes the person you're drawn to isn't actually ready. They want your attention, but not your commitment. They love the feeling, but they're not willing to show up consistently. And if you're not grounded, you'll miss that part completely. Reversed, the Fool for singles can mean that you're about to fall headfirst into a situationship. Maybe you're ignoring red flags. Maybe you're chasing potential. Or maybe you're holding back entirely, refusing to open up because your past is still sitting in the driver's seat. Either way, the reversal is pointing to fear or foolishness, and you'll need to decide which one it is. When it comes to commitment or married relationships, the full upright can bring a new burst of energy. Maybe you and your partner are exploring something new together, shaking things up a bit, reconnecting with that sense of freedom you had in the very beginning. But it can also signal impulsive behavior. One partner might be chasing fun without thinking of the consequences. It's new energy, but not all new energy is stable. Reversed, this card is often a wake-up call. Maybe someone is making irresponsible choices. Maybe there's a lack of accountability. Or maybe you're feeling like you're walking this path alone while the other person keeps doing whatever the heck they want, expecting you to carry the consequences. In some cases, the full reversed can be the first sign of an unraveling bond where reckless decisions or avoidance are threatening the relationship's foundation. When it comes to toxic or unhealthy relationships, the Fool is actually one of the most dangerous cards. Upright, it shows up when you're being too trusting. You're seeing someone's potential instead of their patterns. You're giving chance after chance because your heart is open, but their behavior isn't matching their words. And before you know it, you're in way too deep. Reversed, this card is manipulation at its finest. It shows up when you're being love bombed, emotionally baited, or gaslit into thinking things will change. You might be stuck in a loop, attracting reckless or chaotic partners because there's a wound inside you that still sees this chaos as love. The Fool in this context is a huge red flag, and it's asking you to wake up. When you're recovering from a breakup or considering reconciliation, the Full upright can be a breath of fresh air. It's that moment when you finally start to feel free again, when you're ready to put the past behind you and step into something new. But if you're not grounded in your healing, that fresh start might just be another loop. Reversed, it's often the card of foolish reconciliation, getting back with someone who has not changed, romanticizing the past, believing the story instead of the facts. It's that energy of starting over when you never actually closed the last chapter. And then we get into karmic relationships. When the Fool shows up in karmic dynamics, upright, it's often because you're about to learn something major. This connection might feel like fate, like destiny, like you've known them forever. But the reality is you've signed up for a lesson. And if you're not careful, that lesson is going to be pretty painful. Reversed, the Fool is karmic quicksand. You're stuck in a cycle, jumping into the same kind of relationships with different faces, learning the same hard truths over and over and over again. And until you stop romanticizing the leap, you'll keep landing in the same trap. Now, let's talk about money and finances, because the Fool shows up here in some very big ways. Upright, this card can be exciting. Maybe there's a new financial opportunity on the table, a new job, a side hustle, or even an unexpected source of income. You might be feeling called to invest in something, take a financial leap, or finally bet on yourself. And that is very beautiful energy if it's aligned and intentional. But hidden inside of the Fool is impulsiveness. That rush of spending without thinking, that urge to buy something because it feels good in the moment, not because it makes sense. It's the kind of energy that gets you into credit card debt, bad investments, or financial partnerships that crash as fast as they started. Reversed, the Fool in money is almost always a warning. It can show up when you're being careless with your resources, when you're letting excitement override strategy, or when you're too afraid to make a move at all. Maybe you're missing out on opportunities because fear is louder than your intuition. Or maybe you're making reckless choices because you're chasing quick results instead of long-term stability. When it comes to your career, the full upright is that feeling of something new on the horizon. Maybe you're starting a new job, pivoting your career path, or launching into something you've never done before. It's the energy of stepping into the unknown, but with a sense of hope and excitement. But there's also a shadow side. You might be jumping from job to job with no clear direction. You could be saying yes out of desperation or because you just want to escape. Upright, this card reminds you that new does not always mean better. It just means different. And you still have to bring intentionality to the table. Reversed, the Fool in career can show up as reckless decisions, burning bridges, leaving jobs without a backup plan, or staying in situations you've outgrown because you're afraid to risk stability. Sometimes it means that you are undervaluing yourself, that you're settling, that you're accepting less than you deserve because you haven't yet realized how powerful you actually are. Now, let's shift into business and entrepreneurship. Upright, the Fool is pure innovation. It's the start of a business, it's the start of a brand or a creative idea that is begging to be born. It's that spark of like, what if I just go for it? And sometimes that is exactly what you need to do. But even beautiful energy needs direction. The hidden meaning here is that you might be rushing into something without doing your homework. Remember that word, intentionality. Maybe you're building something you haven't fully planned out. Maybe you're launching with passion, but you have no system. The Fool can mean your business has potential, but your process needs structure. Reversed, this card is warning that you might be getting caught up in hype, following some trends or comparing your journey to someone else's. It can also mean self-sabotage, talking yourself out of starting, staying stuck in fear, or letting past failures stop your future. The Fool in business reversed often says you're capable, but you're letting fear or ego keep you on the sidelines. Yeah. Now let's talk about friendships and your social circle. Upright, the Fool can bring new people into your life, some fresh energy, some new connections, and social opportunities you were not expecting. It might be time to open up, to meet new people, or reconnect with joy through others. But that same openness can make you vulnerable. This card sometimes shows up when you're giving too much trust way too fast, when you're letting people in before you've watched how they move, when you're overlooking red flags because you're excited just to feel connected. And reversed, the Fool is a red flag in your social circle. It's the friend who leads you into chaos. It's the person who makes you question yourself or who seems fun until they're pulling you into things that drain your energy or sabotage your growth. Reversed, it can also mean that you've withdrawn from social spaces altogether because you've been burned before and you no longer know who to trust. In family and home, the Fool upright can be the energy of fresh beginnings. Maybe you're moving into a new home, starting a new chapter in your family structure, or finally feeling free from old dynamics that kept you stuck in the past. It's a clean slate. It is a breath of fresh air. But upright doesn't always mean easy. Sometimes it means you're overlooking some deeper issues within the family. You might be pretending that everything is fine, avoiding some hard conversations, or minimizing dysfunction because you don't want to deal with the mess. Reversed, the Fool is generational recklessness repeating itself. It can mean that you're making the same decisions that your parents or guardians made, even without you realizing it. Maybe you're stuck in a toxic home situation. Maybe someone in the family is acting without responsibility. Or maybe you're ready to break free, but fear keeps pulling you back into the role that you were assigned instead of the life that you want to create for yourself. Let's move into the spiritual journey. Upright, the Fool is the moment the awakening begins. It's that beautiful, often disorienting realization that there is more to life than what you can see. It's your first step onto the path. You feel drawn to the unseen, to the divine, to something bigger than you, and it is thrilling. But here's the danger of the Fool energy when it comes to spirituality. It's ungrounded. You might be jumping from one belief system to another, following every teacher, every trend, every activation without stopping to ask, is this true for me? It's spiritual curiosity without discernment, and that can get you into a bit of trouble. Reversed, the Fool is spiritual naivete. You might be under the influence of false light teachings, of fake gurus or communities that look like love but feel like control. You might be convincing yourself that you're free when in truth, you're running from the deeper healing work. Reversed, it's spiritual bypassing at its core, pretending that you've transcended when really you're just avoiding what still needs to be faced. Now, let's explore the Fool's role in personal growth and self-care. So upright, this is the invitation to take a leap. You're ready to grow, to step into a new version of yourself, to take a risk on healing, even if it scares you. It's a sign that you're becoming more of who you truly are. But here's the catch. Sometimes you're chasing the illusion of growth, buying the books, doing the rituals, repeating the affirmations, but without actually integrating any of it. The Fool shows up when your self-care is really just spiritual distraction. You're performing growth, but you're not embodying it. In reversed, this card is avoidance. Maybe you're stuck in old habits, unwilling to change, or you're hiding behind freedom when what you really need is structure. It's also the energy of pretending that you're okay when deep down you know something is off. The Fool reversed in personal growth is often a call to stop avoiding and start doing the real work. Yeah. Let's talk about health and wellness. When the Fool shows up in a reading around physical health upright, it can mean a new health journey is beginning. Maybe you are starting to take better care of yourself. Maybe your body is calling for some movement, for freshness, for intentional living. This is a great time to make those changes. But the Fool can also mean that you're ignoring physical warning signs. You might be brushing things off, acting like it's no big deal when really your body is screaming for and trying to get your attention. You're being careless with your health, and that I'll deal with it later attitude might be costing you more than you think. In reversed, the Fool is about avoiding the truth. You might be afraid to go to the doctor, afraid to face the diagnosis, or pretending that your habits are not having long-term effects. It's the kind of energy where recklessness feels like freedom, but it leads to burnout. It leads to illnesses and eventually, or it might lead to a breakdown, right? So let's move into mental and emotional health. Upright, the Fool can show that you're ready to shift your mindset. You're beginning to see things from a whole new perspective, and you're releasing outdated beliefs and letting curiosity guide your growth. But sometimes that energy becomes emotional denial. You might be saying that you're fine when you're really just disconnected. You're using humor, distractions, or constant motion to avoid stillness. Look at me, I'm good, while on the inside, the anxiety, the grief, or the heaviness has not gone anywhere. And reversed, this card reveals emotional chaos. You're spiraling, you're self-sabotaging, or acting out instead of facing the root of the problem. The Fool reversed is the part of you that thinks Running from your feelings will somehow just make them magically disappear, but it never does. Now we get into one of the heaviest and most important sections, which is spiritual warfare and psychic protection. Upright. The Fool can show you walking into energetic danger without realizing it. You might be unaware of spiritual battles around you. You might be trusting people who are draining you. You might be opening some spiritual doors that you don't understand, or walking paths without shielding your energy. The Fool upright here says, you think you're protected because you're not looking for danger. But just because you're not looking for it doesn't mean that it's not there. Reversed, this is serious. The Fool shows up when you've been compromised. You may be under psychic attack, manipulated by predators, or led into deception because your intuition was offline. Reversed, this card often means the naive parts of you were used as bait. It's your wake-up call to tighten your energy, to reclaim your discernment, and to stop assuming that everyone is safe just because they use spiritual babble or spiritual language, In shadow work and inner child healing, the Fool is raw innocence. Upright, it's your inner child who is curious, free, expressive, and hopeful. It's also the part of you that got wounded because nobody protected that innocence. It shows up when you're learning to reconnect with your joy while also healing the parts of you that still feel somewhat abandoned or unseen. But the Fool can also show that you're stuck in a pattern, that you're constantly chasing excitement, constantly running from discomfort, that you're avoiding responsibility, avoiding depth, and slapping that label of freedom on it. You're just calling it freedom. When it's reversed, this card is emotional immaturity. It's the wounded inner child running the show. It's the avoidance of healing. This is when your unhealed self is driving decisions, sabotaging your connections, or rejecting boundaries just because you still believe chaos equals love. And until you heal that part of you, the Fool will keep showing up in painful ways. When it comes to legal matters, court cases, or contracts, the Fool upright can go either way. Sometimes it's a new agreement, it is a cleared case, or an unexpected opportunity. But just as often, it's a warning that you're not paying attention. You might be walking into a legal situation blind, signing something that you didn't read, trusting someone you should not, or skipping deadlines because you assumed that it would just all work out. Now, reversed, this card means that you're already in trouble, or you're about to be. It's the energy of legal mistakes, of missed details that create more mess than momentum. If this card shows up in a legal reading reversed, you better slow down and check every single document, every single conversation, and every loophole. Okay. So when the Fool shows up in criminal investigations or true crime readings, it speaks of innocence, or at least the appearance of it. Upright, this card might represent someone who is new to criminal behavior, someone caught up in something they didn't fully understand, or even someone genuinely innocent who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. It could be the victim who trusted the wrong person. It could be the suspect who made a split-second decision without thinking, or the witness who had no idea how deep the situation really went. But this card can also reveal the setup, the bait, the person who was lured or manipulated, led into danger without even realizing that they were being played. The Fool upright may look harmless, but in criminal readings, that's the exact energy that predators look for: naive, unaware, and unguarded. Now reversed, the Fool becomes even more serious. This is recklessness that leads to destruction. It can represent a perpetrator acting without thought or remorse, someone who jumped into something criminal believing that they were untouchable. It might point to someone caught because of carelessness, because of their arrogance, or because they didn't think that they would get caught. It can also highlight the investigator or the authority figure who's missed a major detail. Someone so focused on the obvious that they overlook the actual truth. In missing persons or unsolved cases, the Fool reversed could even suggest that someone underestimated the danger, dismissed early signs, or trusted the wrong person to their own detriment. It's that chilling moment when someone didn't realize the cliff was there until they were already falling. This card in crime readings reminds us that ignorance is not always innocence. And sometimes the most dangerous mistake isn't the act itself, but the failure to see it coming. Let's talk about karmic cycles and soul contracts. Now, upright. The Fool is the start of a karmic chapter. You may be entering a new dynamic, a new opportunity, a new lesson your soul agreed to. It feels exciting. It feels aligned. But if you're not aware that that karmic cycle could teach you through pain instead of peace. The hidden truth about the Fool in karma is this. Sometimes you're making the same mistake again because you haven't fully learned. You think it's a new path, but it's the same old lesson in a new costume. Reversed, this card is pure repetition. You're looping. You're doing what you've done before. You're attracting the same people. You're attracting the same jobs, the same wounds, because your soul is waiting for you to finally choose something different. And when we get into power dynamics, the Fool becomes even more layered, right? Upright, the Fool is freedom. You're stepping into your own path, not letting other people control your moves. But that same energy can also mean that you are simply avoiding responsibility. You're letting other people lead you without asking questions. You're calling it flow, but it's really just passivity. Right? When it's reversed, this card is manipulation. Someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes, or maybe you're using recklessness to avoid being held accountable. Either way, the power is being mishandled. Now, we move into energy blockages and stagnation. Upright, the Fool might show that you're standing at the edge of a new cycle, but you are hesitating for some reason. You're scared to leap. You're wondering, what if I fail? And that fear is the only thing that is stopping you from a breakthrough. Reversed, you're stuck. You're either refusing to move or you've moved without thinking and now you're trapped. The Fool reversed in this theme is about circling the same energetic mountain, thinking you're exploring when really you are just spinning in fear. Now, let's shift to reputation, influence, and public image. Upright, this is the card of stepping into the spotlight. Maybe you're launching something new. Maybe your visibility is growing. Maybe people are starting to notice you. But if you're not grounded, the Fool warns that you're rising too fast without the maturity to sustain it. When this card is reversed, it's the fall from grace. These are reckless tweets, public mistakes, getting caught up in the drama. The Fool reverse says, be careful how you're seen, because perception shapes reality. Next up is government, politics, and global systems. And yes, the Fool shows up here too. Upright, this card can signal a new administration, political shift, or collective awakening. People are stepping into new ideas, new ideologies, maybe even movements that feel full of promise. But here's the catch. The Fool does not guarantee wisdom. Sometimes this card represents leadership with zero experience, decisions being made without real foresight, movements gaining traction because they feel exciting, not because they're actually sound. And reversed, the Fool is collective manipulation. It is when people are being misled. It's when systems distract you with something shiny so you don't see what's actually happening behind the curtain. It's the energy of false promises, chaotic leadership, and mass naivete. You think you're walking into freedom, but you're being herded into confusion. Now let's talk about community and social impact. And in the upright, the Fool can bring fresh connections, grassroots efforts, new collaborations, or social opportunities that push you outside of your comfort zone. It's that spark that makes you want to get involved and show up and contribute. But the shadow side is that you might be jumping into causes or communities without truly understanding them. You're just following the crowd, reposting messages, joining groups because it feels good, but there is no deep awareness guiding the action. And in the reverse, this card is community chaos. It is division. It is conflict. It's a cause that started with good intentions, becoming performative or disorganized. Or maybe it's you feeling left out, misunderstood, or unsafe in group spaces because you've outgrown them but don't know where you belong now. Now we're entering the energy of jealousy, envy, and rivalries, and the Fool plays a surprising role here. Upright, this card often means that people are watching you take risks that they're too afraid to take. Your freedom threatens their comfort. Your leap makes them uncomfortable with their own stagnation. The Fool can represent you being envied, not for what you have, but for the courage that you carry. And reversed, this card can show envy within you or project it onto you. Maybe you're trying to compete with someone else, or maybe you're making decisions not because they're aligned, but because you're trying to prove something to someone. And maybe the people around you are encouraging your recklessness just so that they can watch you fall and fail. This card says check your circle and check your motives. Let's move into timing, fate, and predictive energy. Upright, the Fool represents the beginning. Something is about to start or already has started. The energy is fresh, fast, present. The path may not be clear, but it is unfolding now. But the Fool doesn't give a guaranteed outcome. It just tells you that the window has opened and how you move through it is what really matters. Reversed, this card says not yet. It could mean a false start, a divine delay, or that you're about to leap before you have received all the necessary information. It's spirit stepping in and saying, slow down. You're not ready, even if you think you are. Now, let's talk about dream interpretation and subconscious messages. Upright, the Fool might appear in dreams that feel strange, surreal, or symbolic of something new. You're walking into unfamiliar places, meeting unknown people, encountering odd symbols because your soul is preparing you for something that you have not consciously understood yet. The hidden message here, your subconscious is nudging you to just pay attention. You're on the brink of change, but you might not fully see it yet. And when it's reversed, the Fool shows up when it has to do with restless dreams, confusion, loops, warnings. You're being told to stop avoiding something. You're chasing distractions or illusions. And your dream space is trying to wake you up, even if it has to shake you to do it. Now we arrive at manifestation, creation power, and the law of attraction. Upright, the Fool is pure creation energy, the spark, the vision. The moment you say, why not me? It's raw potential waiting to be shaped. But here's the warning. The Fool does not manifest intentionally. It just moves. And if you're trying to manifest from chaos or desperation or emotional bypassing, you're going to attract more confusion than clarity. Reversed, this card is manifesting in reverse. You're calling in drama. You're sending mixed signals to the universe. You're visualizing one thing while energetically sabotaging it. The Fool is the law of attraction with no anchor, and that's not power, that is simply a mess. Now we step into spiritual contracts and ancestral influence. Upright, the Fool might represent a contract that you made in another lifetime. You're walking into an experience that your soul agreed to, but you haven't remembered the terms yet. It feels familiar but confusing. Destined but unpredictable. That's the Fool stepping into sacred territory without the map. It can also mean that you're doing something your ancestors never got to do. You're breaking generational patterns. You're leaping where they were stuck. You're the wild one. You're the one who dared to try. And reversed, the Fool means ancestral loops. You're making decisions from wounds that aren't even yours. You're living out patterns passed down without questioning them. Or you're bound to spiritual agreements that no longer serve you, but you haven't revoked the contract yet. Now, let's talk about destiny versus free will. Upright, the Fool is the card of choice. It says, you can move, you can create, you're not bound by what was. It is the universe giving you full permission to choose your own story. But the deeper truth, sometimes you're choosing from programming. You think it's free will, but it's actually old trauma or unhealed wounds or ego pretending to be your intuition. And when it's reversed, this card is fate intervening. Spirit is saying you think you're in control, but you're not seeing the bigger picture. It can mean a detour is being forced, or that your options are being limited because your energy is too scattered to move forward wisely. Now let's talk about corruption, deception, and hidden enemies. Upright, the Fool is danger disguised as adventure. Someone is lying to you, but you're too trusting to see it. You're stepping into a trap with a smile because you didn't check the vibe first. It's naivete. It's innocence in the wrong room. And reversed, this card is a spiritual setup. You're being played. You're being manipulated. You're being used. There is a hidden agenda, and if you keep ignoring the signs, you will learn the hard way. The Fool reversed is betrayal in motion, and you're the one who is being led off the cliff. Let's talk about collective energy and global shifts now. Upright, the Fool represents the collective stepping into new territory. New technology, social justice, rebellion, innovation, chaos, it's all shifting all at once. But collective Fool energy is a bit unstable. People are jumping into causes, leaders, and trends without discernment. It's movement without direction. Reversed, this card is mass confusion. It's global deception. It's spiritual bypassing on a planetary level. It is collective spiraling, and no one is asking the right questions if they're asking questions at all. Now, let's talk endings, closure, and transformation cycles. Upright, the Fool often appears at the end of something major, but disguised as a beginning. You've closed a chapter, whether you realize it or not, and now Spirit is asking, what are you going to do with this blank page? But if you haven't truly processed the ending, the Fool becomes a distraction. You're rushing into the next thing to avoid the grief. And reversed, this card means refusal to let go. You're still clinging to a door that has already been closed. You're trying to resurrect what needs to just stay buried, and it's costing you your peace. We're almost there, you guys. Let's talk about red flags, warnings, and divine protection. So upright, the Fool is the universe saying, are you sure? You're being guided, but you still need to move with your eyes open. Spirit might be giving you a green light, but it expects you to still use your intuition along the way. In reversed, this is divine intervention. Something is not right. A red flag has already been raised and you're ignoring it. This is when Spirit blocks your path, not to punish you, but to protect you from what your logic has not caught on to yet. Psychic gifts and activation energy comes next. Upright, the Fool is your awakening. It's the dream. It's the spark. It's the calling that you cannot explain. It's the moment that your your gifts come online, even if you don't know how to use them yet. But upright also means that you're new. You're still learning, you're still exploring, you're still vulnerable to misinformation if you're not grounded yet. Reversed, it's the misuse of power. You're reading before you're ready. You're channeling energy without understanding it, or you're denying your gifts out of fear, which only makes the pressure build. The full reverse says you're gifted, but not protected, and you need to fix that. Next is personal and professional boundaries. In the upright, the Fool is open, trusting, available. And that's beautiful if you've got discernment. But if you're just letting everyone in without a filter, you are not being spiritual, you are being reckless. Reversed, this card says that your boundaries are either way too loose or way too rigid. You've been burned before, so now you're either blocking everyone out or you're letting people in way too quickly. Either way, it is time for you to get clear. Next up, we have spiritual tests and triggers. And in the upright, the Fool is your test. Will you leap without thinking, or will you pause and ask, is this my path? Spirit doesn't always test you with hardship. Sometimes it tests you with opportunity. And reversed, you're failing the test. Yeah, you're reacting, or you're triggered, or you're choosing recklessness and calling it trust. And Spirit is watching to see if you're really ready for what you say that you want. Okay, almost there. Let's talk about your role in other people's lessons. Upright, the Fool might mean that you're the trigger for someone else's growth. Your boldness, your freedom, your energy just shakes them up, right? And that's not always a bad thing. When it's reversed, it is about being used in someone's karmic cycle. You might have been the one who got hurt or the one who hurt them, but either way, the lesson wasn't about staying, it was about waking up. With personal power and self-accountability, in the upright, the Fool is taking the leap because you trust yourself. Not because someone said it was okay. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because your spirit is aligned with your steps. In the reverse, you are playing the victim. You're blaming other people. You're refusing to own the fact that this is your cliff, that this is your leap, and that this is your choice. And you've got to take responsibility for wherever it is that you land. Unexpected events and divine detours. In the upright, this card is sudden shifts, the new path you did not plan. It is the blessing in disguise. It is the closed door that actually saved you. Reversed, it is chaos. The detour that you did not see coming because you were moving without clarity. You're off course, but only because you refused to slow down when Spirit asked you to. Okay, so with obsession, addiction, and emotional dependency, when the card is upright, the Fool is freedom. But freedom can become addiction when it is ungrounded. You might be addicted to the next new thing. You might be addicted to chaos. You might be addicted to drama disguised as desire. And when it's reversed, this card is pure obsession. You're emotionally dependent. You're chasing someone or something or some outcome because you don't trust yourself to just stand still. We have reputation, legacy, and how you will be remembered. In the upright, the Fool is the courage to reinvent, to be remembered as the one who dared to take the leap, the one who didn't play it safe or play small. Reversed, it is regret. It's mistakes. It's foolish behavior that becomes part of your legacy. And Spirit asks, what story are you writing with your actions? Let's talk about the difference between survival mode and creation, because the Fool doesn't always know which one it's in exactly. In the upright, the Fool can be that breath of fresh air when you're finally stepping out of survival mode. You're choosing to create. You're choosing possibility. You're no longer just trying to get through the day. You're dreaming again, and that energy is sacred. But if you're not grounded, you might think that you are creating when really you are just reacting. The leap feels like freedom, but underneath it is panic. You're trying to escape, not expand. And reversed, the Fool is full on survival mode. You're making impulsive choices because you feel cornered. You're burning bridges, you're quitting things, you're starting things, not because they're aligned, but because you're in a trauma response. You're calling it freedom, but it's just fight or flight dressed up like empowerment. Now, let's move into illusion, fantasy, and escapism, because the Fool has its head in the clouds more than any other card in the deck. And in the upright, this card can show beautiful imagination. It shows vision and hope, that wild visionary part of you that sees possibility before it exists. You're dreaming, you're creating, you're seeing something that no one else can see yet. But sometimes that imagination becomes your hiding place. You're avoiding reality. You're falling in love with what could be, so much so that you forget what actually is. And reversed, the Fool is just outright delusion. You're lying to yourself. You are ignoring red flags. You're lost in a fantasy and calling it divine guidance. It's the energy of false hope, spiritual bypassing, or toxic positivity. You're pretending that things are okay because you don't want to deal with the truth. And with that, we have walked every path of the Fool. Okay, now let's bring it all together. The Fool is not just about new beginnings. It is about how you start, why you leap, and what you're avoiding, and whether your freedom is rooted in truth or in fear. Upright, its potential, activation, and the call to step into your next chapter. Reversed, it is a mirror, and that mirror is asking you to get honest about what freedom actually costs and whether you're willing to take the leap with your eyes wide open. Now, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, where has the Fool shown up in your life, and what did it teach you? Did you leap and land in something beautiful? Or did you leap and fall flat, only to realize you needed that fall to finally wake up? If this episode opened something in you, if you saw yourself, your patterns, your past in these layers, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Oracle Evolution, and hit that bell so you do not miss a single episode. And if you want early access to episode 2, The Magician, and every episode after that, become a channel member at any level, including the lowest level. You'll unlock bonus content, behind the scenes insight, downloadable tools, and so much more. Oh, and don't forget to add the Tarot Deep Dive series playlist to your library so you can come back anytime, pick up where you left off, or revisit the chapters that speak to you the most. The Fool's journey begins with a leap. But what comes next? In episode 2, we step into The Magician, where power meets purpose and intention becomes reality. I'll see you there.